1:47 in the morning. No warning. No struggle caught on film. Just a masked figure in black, and then nothing. But something was still recording. Inside an 84-year-old woman's chest, a device the size of a matchbox had been logging her heartbeat, her movement, her fear, time-stamped, stored, and transmitted to a cloud server the FBI would subpoena within days. What investigators found inside that data is not a theory. It is a physiological record that cannot be altered, cannot be coached, and cannot lie. Here is what disturbs the forensic team most. It is not what the data fails to explain. It is what it explains completely. This is the story of Nancy Guthrie, a woman still missing after 90 days, and the silent witness no one thought to ask about until the case needed it most. Her own heart was keeping count the entire time. Nancy Guthrie is not a public figure, and that matters. She is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the Today Show anchor whose face most Americans wake up to. But Nancy herself spent 5 decades deliberately outside that spotlight, rooted in the Catalina foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, where the desert light turns amber in the evenings and the streets go quiet well before midnight. She raised 3 children largely alone after her husband died suddenly in 1988. She kept a garden. She attended church on Sundays. She had a pacemaker, a modern implanted cardiac device that did something far beyond regulating her heartbeat, something that would become the most consequential piece of evidence in this entire federal investigation. On the evening of January 31, 2026, Nancy had dinner with her daughter Annie, who lives approximately 4 miles away. Annie's husband Tommaso drove her home afterward. Nancy went inside. The porch light was on. The neighborhood was still. At 1:47 in the morning, her front door camera picked up a figure approaching, masked, dressed in black, slim build, carrying 2 bags, wearing gloves. 15 seconds later, the camera went dark. What the camera missed, her heart recorded. The pacemaker logged it, a sudden, dramatic spike in heart rate at 1:47. Not the gradual rise of someone stirring from sleep, but an acute, immediate physiological response. Forensic cardiologists have a precise term for this pattern. It is the cardiac signature of a conscious person who is suddenly and severely frightened. Her heart spiked at the exact second the camera died. That is not coincidence. That is correlation with a timestamp. The framework that makes this case unlike any other missing persons investigation in recent memory is what investigators are now calling a silent record, evidence generated not by cameras or witnesses, but by the body of the victim herself, in real time, without any possibility of interference. Here is what almost no coverage has addressed directly. The pacemaker contained an accelerometer. Not just a heart monitor. A motion sensor capable of distinguishing between a person walking voluntarily and a person being carried. Before we get to what that accelerometer recorded, there is a flaw in how this case has been publicly understood, and it needs to be named. For weeks, multiple news outlets reported that Nancy's pacemaker stopped at 2:28 in the morning. That language implied the worst. It was wrong. What stopped at 2:28 was the wireless sync between Nancy's pacemaker and the home monitoring base unit plugged in beside her bed. The Bluetooth connection broke, most likely because Nancy was in a vehicle that had traveled beyond the device's range, or because someone disabled the base unit directly. Nancy's heart did not stop. The pacemaker's internal memory kept recording. Her cardiac data after 2:28 is not gone. It is stored in a device still implanted in her chest, still running on a battery with 6 to 7 years of life remaining. The misreporting of this detail did something damaging to the public's understanding of her odds. It introduced a premature grief that the actual evidence does not support. Pima County, Arizona, sits at an elevation where winter nights drop into the low 40s. On the morning of February 1, 2026, the Catalina foothills were dark, quiet, and almost entirely empty of traffic past midnight. The neighborhood is the kind of place where an unfamiliar vehicle is noticed at noon and invisible at 2 a.m. Whoever chose this location and this timing understood that geography. The B story of Tucson in early 2026 is relevant here, a city with a historically complex relationship between its county sheriff's office and federal investigators, a friction that, as we will discuss, created real and measurable delays at the worst possible moment. Southern Arizona is also a geographic corridor. One highway runs south from the Catalina foothills directly toward Rio Rico and the Mexican border, a route that falls squarely within the radius the FBI derived from Nancy's own accelerometer data. Her body told them which direction to look. The DNA recovered from Nancy's home came back clean against every criminal database in the country. No priors. No arrests. No record. Whoever was inside that house has been living, Until now, like an ordinary person. Walk through the evidence the way investigators did, in sequence, because sequence is everything here. 6:46 and 58 seconds AM. The front door sensor detects motion. 1 hour 47 minutes and 2 seconds the doorbell camera activates. 1 hour 47 minutes and 15 seconds the masked figure appears on screen. 1 hour 47 minutes and 18 seconds Nancy's pacemaker logs a significant cardiac event. Heart rate spikes, rhythm becomes irregular. 1 hour 47 minutes and 50 seconds the figure leaves the camera frame. The camera is disabled. 2:28 the pacemaker sync with the home monitoring unit stops. That is a 41-minute window of complete external darkness. No camera, no cell signal, no GPS. But the pacemaker recorded every second of it. Forensic cardiologist Dr. David Slotwiner, whose published work on implanted cardiac monitor data in criminal investigations has been cited in federal court, has described the type of acute heart rate elevation seen in this data as clinically inconsistent with natural waking. It is the body's threat response firing in full. The sustained elevation is the second data point that matters. In a normal startle event, heart rate spikes and returns to baseline within minutes. Nancy's heart rate did not return. It stayed elevated, with rhythm irregularities that cardiologists associate with prolonged and severe emotional distress. Whatever triggered that spike at 1:47 was still present, still close, for the duration of that 41-minute window. 2 bags. Gloves. A masked figure moving with purpose through a residential address at 1:45 in the morning. Dr. Casey Jordan, a criminologist who has analyzed this case publicly, described the operational profile as prepared, not impulsive. This was not a break-in that escalated. Someone assembled the materials, scouted or already knew the property, and arrived with a specific plan. The Catalina foothills to Rio Rico corridor is approximately 60 miles of sparse highway. At 2 a.m., a vehicle traveling that route would encounter almost no traffic checkpoints and very few residential lights. The geography does not need to be dramatized. It speaks for itself. In the final 10 to 15 minutes before the sync stopped, the pacemaker recorded something no news outlet fully explained, a specific pattern of decreasing heart rate variability that forensic cardiologists associate with one cause, pharmacological sedation. Someone gave Nancy Guthrie a drug. That finding rewrites the entire profile of this case. Start with what it rules out. A person administering medical-grade sedation in the back of a moving vehicle in the middle of the night did not acquire that substance by accident. The compounds capable of producing the rapid-onset cardiac signature visible in Nancy's pacemaker data are not available over any pharmacy counter. They require a prescription trail, a clinical connection, or a procurement route that itself generates a record. The FBI is following that trail right now. Every compound eliminated narrows the field. Every source ruled out tightens the circle. The plant, a rootless hair sample and biological material from a bedsheet were recovered from Nancy's home. Rootless hair is notoriously resistant to standard DNA profiling. The FBI transferred that evidence to Astria Forensics, a California-based laboratory specializing in low-copper number DNA analysis. Forensic genetic genealogist C.E. Moore, who has personally resolved cold cases spanning decades using degraded biological material, is involved in the analysis. Step back, the CODIS search, the National Criminal DNA Database, came back negative. No matches. No prior arrests. No criminal history. Let the viewer complete the thought. Whoever left biological evidence inside Nancy Guthrie's home has never been arrested. Has never been convicted of anything. Is not in any law enforcement database. Is, on the surface of their life, completely unremarkable. Someone who could sit at a dinner table and not draw a second glance. The accelerometer data, the piece of this investigation that received the least public explanation, closes the most important gap. Approximately 15 to 20 minutes into the 41-minute window, the motion data shifts from active to passive. The pattern changes from self-generated movement, the rhythmic signature of a person moving under their own power, to something different. Carried movement. Transported movement. The specific accelerometer profile that results from a body being moved by someone else rather than moving itself. The duration and continuous character of that passive movement, the sustained rhythm of it, is consistent with being placed in a vehicle and driven. 3 independent criminal profilers, Doctor and Burgess, whose research with the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit is foundational to the field, Dr. Gary Brucato of Boston College, and criminologist Dr. Casey Jordan, each reached the same conclusion when analyzing the operational elements of this case. The figure at the front door was not the architect. The gloves, the bags, the prepared sedation, the knowledge of the camera system, the timing, these reflect planning that originates with someone who had reason to want this outcome. The figure at the door was an instrument. The person who designed the operation stayed invisible. And if that person anticipated loose ends, then the figure at the door may already have become one. FBI Director Kash Patel used the word nefarious in a public statement. Former FBI agents noted that the Bureau does not use that language without cause. Nefarious, in federal context, means they see a conspiracy. It means they believe more than one person is responsible. It means the investigation is not looking for a random actor. The person most central to this investigation, the one investigators believe designed it, has no criminal record, no database presence, and according to 3 independent profilers, almost certainly has a direct connection to Nancy's life. That connection is what the DNA at Quantico may finally name. The silent record is the spine of this case. Not the camera footage, that died in 15 seconds. Not witness accounts, there are none. The evidence that matters most in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie was generated by her own body, in real time, inside a device she received years ago to help her heart stay regular. It told investigators she was awake. It told them she was terrified. It told them she was carried. It told them she was sedated. It told them her heart was still beating at 2:28 in the morning. Each of those data points carries a weight that camera footage cannot match, because it comes from inside the victim, with a timestamp, without the possibility of tampering after the fact. The system failure passage this case demands is not comfortable to state. The DNA evidence recovered from Nancy's home was not sent immediately to Quantico. It went first to a state-level laboratory in Florida. FBI Director Kash Patel had a fixed-wing aircraft on the ground in Tucson the night of February 1st, ready to transport that evidence directly to the Bureau's full forensic capacity. That aircraft Saturday. The evidence went elsewhere first. The delay cost weeks. Weeks, in a missing persons case involving an 84-year-old woman. The jurisdictional friction between the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI has been characterized in public record as a personal conflict. A sitting county official publicly accused Sheriff Chris Nanos of allowing a grudge against the Bureau to interfere with a federal investigation. That accusation has not been retracted. Sheriff Nanos has not answered it directly. The question the relevant institutions have not answered publicly: who made the decision to send biological evidence to a state lab rather than to Quantico, and was the decision made on jurisdictional grounds or investigative grounds? Those are different answers with different implications, and neither has been provided. The Bluetooth detection effort, deploying signal-sniffing equipment on low-altitude helicopters to scan for Nancy's Pacemaker's unique MAC address, was publicly described in detail. Every detail disclosed to the press about detection methodology was simultaneously disclosed to whoever is holding Nancy. Whether that operational transparency affected search outcomes is a question the FBI has not addressed. There is also a gap that precedes this case entirely. Modern implanted cardiac devices generate continuous physiological data with forensic value that most law enforcement agencies have no established protocol for subpoenaing or analyzing. The FBI moved quickly here. But the absence of a standard framework, a formal federal protocol for expedited cardiac data subpoenas in violent crime and abduction cases, meant the initial request had to be built from scratch while time was running out. That gap exists in every jurisdiction in this country right now. Nancy Guthrie's case has exposed it. The question is whether any legislature will ask it. The sedation finding is the detail that defines the perpetrator profile most precisely. Whoever administered that compound brought it to a residential address in the middle of the night. Acquired it before the operation. Planned for the specific contingency of needing to render an 84-year-old woman incapacitated quickly and quietly. That is not improvisation. That is a person who thought through every possibility in advance. The FBI knows the cardiac signature. That signature constrains the compound. The compound constrains the source. The source leads to a name. Here is where the investigation stands, stated without softening. The DNA from Nancy's home is at Quantico. C.C. Moore and Astria Forensics are processing it through probabilistic genotyping and forensic genetic genealogy, a methodology that has produced convictions in cases that went cold for 30 years. A CODIS negative is not a dead end for this process. It is the starting point. The Bluetooth detection corridor, derived from the accelerometer's passive movement data, which places Nancy approximately 12 to 25 miles south of the Catalina foothills at the moment the sink broke, continues to be swept. When that signal is detected, it will not require interpretation. It will give investigators a location. The sedation compound procurement trail is an active thread. It narrows with each ruled-out source. And the silent record inside Nancy Guthrie's chest is still running. That pacemaker has approximately 6 years of battery remaining. Its internal memory has been logging every moment since 2:28 on the morning of February 1st. Every change in heart rate. Every motion signature. Every physiological response to whatever has happened in the days and weeks since she was taken from her home. The full record of those 90-plus days exists. It is stored. It is time-stamped. It is waiting. The only way to read it is to find her. Nancy Guthrie was a woman who raised her children without complaint, kept her garden through the dry Tucson summers, and had dinner with her daughter the night before her life was taken from her. She is 84 years old. She is someone's mother. She is someone's grandmother. The device inside her chest was put there to protect her. And it has done something extraordinary. It has told the truth about the night she disappeared with a precision no human witness could have managed. The system that was supposed to protect her after that night moved more slowly than it should have. Two institutions in conflict. An aircraft on the ground that didn't fly when it should have. Operational details disclosed when silence would have served her better. Those failures are not abstractions. They are measurable in weeks. And in a case like this, weeks are not a bureaucratic cost. They belong to Nancy. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900 or reach the FBI directly. The reward is $1,200,000. The truth about who planned this, who obtained the sedatives, who knew the camera system, who had reason enough to orchestrate this level of operation against an 84-year-old woman, may already be encoded in the DNA sitting at Quantico right now. When CCE Moore's analysis produces a result, this channel will cover it in full. Subscribe now, because that update will not wait. One question before you go, and I want a real answer in the comments. The jurisdictional conflict between the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI delayed the transfer of biological evidence by weeks. A federal aircraft was ready and waiting the same night. Someone made a decision that cost time. Do you believe that decision was made on legitimate investigative grounds, or was it something else entirely? Her heart is still beating.